Hi, everybody. This is your friendly neighborhood ESL and accent reduction tutor, David Berlin. Today, I want to talk about two questions that you might get in a job interview. The first question is, what is your biggest weakness? This is always a tough question that my students always want to know how to answer. The second question is, what was your greatest accomplishment at your previous place of business? So, those are two questions that students often have difficulty with. Now, the first question, what is your greatest weakness? Um, when an interviewer asks this, he's looking for something very. He's looking for a weakness, but he doesn't want to hear the craziest thing, that you can't handle. He wants to hear something sort of mid grade and a weakness that might somewhat or mildly affect your work. You don't want to tell him something that will make you unable to work in his eyes. You want to tell him something that might somewhat or mildly affect your work in a mild way. So, one thing that people often answer is, for instance, I'm a procrastinator. That's one type of answer. So, for example, a procrastinator is someone who puts off for tomorrow what they should be doing today, right? So they don't do unpleasant tasks until the last minute, or they have a task that is unpleasant that they should really do today and they put it off for tomorrow. That's a procrastinator. So they don't someone who doesn't start tasks that they think will be unpleasant. So that's what a procrastinator is. So sometimes people answer that question by saying, I'm a procrastinator. So, but then you have to give an example, right? So, one example might be uh, when I was the team lead for my last job, I got my senior a document 6 hours late. And while it was still within deadline, uh, he 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 really had hoped to get it in before I got it to him. I got it to him late. So that's an example of being a procrastinator because I didn't do it until later, right? So another weakness, for example, that you could say something like, my leadership skills are not well tested. I'm a little bit green in the area of leadership. Green means you're sort of a beginner, right? So you could say something like, I was only a team lead twice at my last job, and although I did well, I really feel like my leadership skills are not well tested because I was only a team lead twice at my last job. So that's, for example, two example answers of the type of answer that they're looking for when they ask you what is your greatest weakness. You could say something like, uh, you could say something like, uh, my leadership skills are untested, or you could say something like, I'm a procrastinator, just for two examples. Okay, now, the next question that they ask you is, what is your greatest accomplishment, right? So, greatest accomplishment at your past place of business, at your past job. So, one of the things that they're looking for is an accomplishment that is related to the job that you're going to be doing or related to the job that you're applying for, but you don't want to be too openly boastful. So you have to kind of do like a brag a little bit, but in the proper degree. You don't want to go overboard bragging, but you don't want to come up with an accomplishment that doesn't mean anything. So one thing you could say is, um, something like, at my last job, I was a team lead 3 times. All 3 projects went forward and were successful and ended up being sold to our end users, or all three projects became part of something that was sold to our end users, or what have you, whatever it is, right? And my role was to do, whatever, and uh, I accomplished it this way. You give, examples of how you accomplished it, and then, say something like, and it ended up being a great success, and I really felt for the first time that I had been a leader. Something like that. You give that kind of answer. But the most important thing, let me give you a tip. The most important thing with these two questions is the examples. Because really, the weakness or uh, the accomplishment could be anything, right? But you have to give really good examples. Now, one way to think of a really good example, just for example, is to give a point like I was the team lead 4 times, and then give two details. Something like sold, I increased sales by 20%, and everybody on, could be anything, right? Whatever your two details are. So when you give an example for any type of interview question, you want to give a point and two or three examples. Now, what that'll be is up to you, and it'll sort of be different for whatever the question is. Okay, but that's really how you answer those questions, and that's really how you answer any interview question, is kind of with a point. I was the team lead for 4 times, or whatever it is, and then you give two examples, three examples, a few examples. And your examples should be detailed and specific. Don't be vague. Okay, all right. So that's a general idea of how to answer difficult interview questions, too, in particular, and just a general idea of how to answer interview questions in general. Okay? This is your friendly neighborhood ESL and accent reduction tutor, David Berlin, and you can reach me at 732-807-5424 if you want English or ESL lessons, or help with your accent, making yourself more understandable to Americans in America, accent reduction. You can give me a call, 732-807-5424, or email me at david.berlin.esl@gmail.com. Or you can reach me on Skype at david.berlin.esl is my Skype ID. Or you can call or text at 732-807-5424. I can't call you. You have to call me. This is David Berlin, your friendly neighborhood ESL and accent reduction tutor, signing off. Goodbye.